From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Skipping some simple steps.
Fear of the unknown is a big one.
How that is putting some men's health in jeopardy. Gas prices hit another new record, but could relief be on the way when it comes to diesel?
These prices are not going to go back to the levels we had at the beginning of 2021.
And a new effort to strengthen the nation's food system.
I believe a transformed food system will deliver a better deal for farmers, ranchers, and growers and consumers.
Details on new funding efforts that could touch just about every aspect from farm to table, right now on AgDay. Good morning and welcome to AgDay. I'm Michelle Rook in for Clinton, who's on vacation. The pandemic exposed weaknesses in the food supply chain system, and now USDA is working to make sure that never happens again. Secretary Tom Vilsack announcing a plan he says will transform the country's food system, unveiling the plan during a speech at Georgetown University. The over $2 billion package includes previously announced funding to expand meat and poultry processing and to finance new infrastructure such as cold storage facilities. But there is $600 million in new aid to support the supply chain outside of meat processing. Here's a quick snapshot. There's the $650 million in funding and loan assistance for meat and poultry processing projects, including $275 million to help entrepreneurs who have had trouble getting credit. Another $100 million would go towards training workers in meat processing. And another $600 million is earmarked for improving food supply chain infrastructure, including cold storage and refrigerated trucks outside of meat and processing. Up to $300 million to help farmers transition to organic production, up to $75 million to support urban agriculture, $400 million for regional food business centers, and other funding you see listed on your screen, including money aimed at reducing food deserts, food loss and waste, and money for farm-to-school programs.
Given all of these challenges that the country faces, one might ask, why are we even talking about transforming the American food system? Well, I believe the answer is simple. It's what we always do in America. When faced with grave challenges, America seizes the opportunity to transform itself into a stronger and better form of itself. It is, as President Biden often says, in our nature to build back better.
The initiatives are funded through the American Rescue Plan that was enacted in March of last year, along with other relief legislation. Gas prices hitting another record high midweek, with the national average jumping another 5 cents. The new highest all-time record is now $4.67 a gallon. AAA reports 7 states now average $5 a gallon or higher, including California and more recently, Illinois. The soaring prices are led in part by strong demand as people ramp up travel plans and a sluggish supply. The jump also comes after the European Union reached a deal to ban 90% of its Russian oil imports by the end of the year. Meanwhile, diesel prices are down 4 cents from their record highs set in the middle of last month, averaging now $5.53 a gallon. And market watchers tell us diesel prices could see price relief in the coming weeks.
These prices are not going to go back to the levels we had at the beginning of 2021. It's more likely that we'll see maybe, a $5 to $10 decline in crude price, and that would equate to maybe 50 to 60 cents on the diesel price itself, right? So we're not talking about a major relief, right?
He says diesel refineries in the Midwest are coming out of maintenance season and ramping up production. This will help rebuild inventories, but he says with inventories already tight, we could be just one hurricane away from a diesel shortage this year. The record rally of California's diesel prices is pushing up costs for shippers to transport goods from the country's busiest seaports. Farm Journal's Jim Wiesmeyer reports California's production of CARB diesel is mandated by the state, but production has fallen to the lowest levels since 2004. He says in part it's because regulations have incentivized the transition toward renewable alternatives. With all the moisture lately, are we seeing any improvements in root zone moisture? We get an update from meteorologist Matt Yarosavik.
Yeah, Michelle, and as we look at this new root zone, you can't really see much difference with regards to the southwest, which unfortunately is where we need a lot of that rain. But taking a look, still extremely dry from central Texas up through parts of Colorado and all the way back through California. Pacific Northwest, very, very damp at this time after a lot of rain over the past couple of weeks. Same thing with the upper Midwest. We're talking about North Dakota up into Minnesota and Wisconsin, and still a lot of moisture there right through the Mississippi River Valley and Middle Tennessee, and still abnormally dry in parts of the mid-Atlantic states. So that's something we'll continue to keep an eye on here as more rain is expected over the next 10 days. Looking at this map where we put it in motion, and you'll see most of it right through the middle part of the country, Central Plains, Upper Midwest, and all the way through the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. Still, though, a lot of moisture in the Pacific Northwest, and even some parts of Texas may get in on that. But then our eyes go to South Florida, where we have the 70% probability of tropical development by the next 4 days. And we're going to be watching for the remnants of Agatha back from the Pacific moving into the Gulf of Mexico, something we'll keep an eye on here and keep you updated on AgDay. And in parts of Missouri, it's a case of too much rain too soon. Our own Tyne Morgan snapping this photo, and she says her part of the state saw nearly 4 inches of rain in just about 12 hours, and there was more rain on the way on Wednesday. She says farmers are going to have to do some replanting in the state. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
As tensions grow with China, the U.S. is launching initiatives to boost economic ties with Taiwan, and agriculture stands to play a role. The U.S. Trade Representative's office unveiling a new pact with Taipei, one that will promote bilateral trade in areas such as digital trade, clean energy, and labor rights. It says the U.S. and Taiwan will also explore provisions to facilitate ag trade through science and risk-based decision-making. The U.S. Commerce Secretary is launching a separate dialogue with Taiwan. It's aimed at addressing technology, trade, and investments. Taiwan is a leading supplier of advanced semiconductors. Malaysia is suspending exports of live chickens. The decision is meant to guarantee enough supplies for domestic markets, but the move is prompting concern in neighboring Singapore. That's because chicken rice is a national dish there. Singapore sources a third of its poultry from Malaysia. Malaysia typically exports up to 3.6 million chickens a month. In response, Singapore consumers have rushed to stock up on fresh chicken. The ban comes as countries worldwide deal with soaring food prices fueled partly by the war in Ukraine. Corn and wheat continue to slide midweek, with the rest of the complex mostly higher. We'll have details coming up in markets. And later, are you missing some simple steps in order to stay healthy? What you can do to change that in today's Ag for Your Health. Joining us with this morning's market analysis, Jim McCormick with agmarket.net. Well, a slide in corn and wheat futures again on Wednesday, and it looks like traders are believing that Russia is actually going to open export channels to Ukraine.
That definitely seems to be what's going on, Michelle. We've been dealing with this for about a week, 10 days now, where, Putin has kind of expressed optimism of allowing some of that grain to move out of the Ukraine. You're talking roughly 25 million metric tons of grain, not to mention they're getting ready to start the harvest of the new crop, wheat as well. But, personally, I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, to do that, you're going to have to demine the ports. That would expose the Ukraine to essentially more invasion. And let's face it, Michelle, we've been through this before. We did this before the war started. A lot of European Union leaders went over there. They said Putin said he wasn't going to invade. They took him for his word, and then he invaded. Now they're trying to take him for his word again, that he's going to let this grain out. I truly don't think it's going to happen. To do it, he wants a quid pro quo of a relief of the sanctions, and I don't see the world leaders doing it.
So soybeans were able to shake off the lower corn and wheat unlike the previous day, and so was that a corrective bounce, or was there more to it?
I think it was a little bit of a corrective bounce too. I do think we're seeing a little bit of a liquidation of a trade. Late last week, you might remember the bean market was sharply higher, about 50 cents higher. Corn market was unchanged. And what we heard that day is we had a big hedge fund that had been earlier placed a trade where he's buying 2 corn and selling 1 bean contract as a big trade. He unwound some of that trade last week, and it looks like he might have been at it again on Wednesday.
And we did see a corrective bounce in livestock futures, both cattle and hogs too, right?
They both saw a little bit of a corrective bounce today. After the hard down day yesterday, they came back. The cheaper grain prices definitely add a little bit of support. Also, I think you are moving into the grilling season right now, Michelle, and I think that is providing a little bit of support to the market.
All right, appreciate your analysis. Thanks so much for joining us. That is Jim McCormick with agmarket.net, and more Ag Day coming up.
To contact Jim McCormick at Ag Market, call 844-4AG-MARKET or visit their website at www.agmarket.net. It's time to sign up for the 2022 United Pork Americas Conference in Orlando, Florida. Register today at unitedporkamericas.com and join us September 7th through the 9th.
Hurricane season is now officially underway. As we told you previously, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration is predicting above average hurricane activity this year. They attribute that to higher than normal Atlantic temperatures and the ongoing La Nina weather pattern. If the forecasts turn out to be correct, it would make 2022 the 7th straight above average hurricane season. The agency is expecting a likely range of 14 to 21 named storms, with 6 to 10 possibly becoming hurricanes. Back in with weather this morning, Matt Yursavik, and a big change in temperatures in the middle part of the country anyways.
Oh yeah, it was hot. It was very humid at least a couple of days ago, and now that cold front's come through. Kind of refreshing out there. Still warm, but very refreshing with lower humidity. And you can see the center of the country still hitting temperatures in the mid to upper 70s, close to 80 there in Omaha by this afternoon. But the big change again going to be that lower humidity. We still have the very humid conditions across the Gulf Coast and up into the eastern seaboard there. That's because that cold front still working its way off to the east, but something that will continue to progress over the next couple of days. Notice the lows though into the 40s, 50s, and some low 60s there, keeping it very refreshing overnight, especially in parts of the upper Midwest, parts of the Great Lakes that saw that high humidity over the past couple of days. And here's a look as we head into tomorrow afternoon. Warmer temperatures getting a little bit farther down to the south and east, still staying pretty humid across the Gulf Coast. Hot and dry in the west, cool and pretty damp back in the Pacific Northwest, and then still lower humidity, staying a little bit warmer there across the center part of the country. And here's a look at why. There's that cold front, a couple of lows tracking along it, some showers and storms Thursday evening moving into parts of the mid-Atlantic. Meanwhile, high pressure in control in the center of the country, keeping skies mostly clear and dry, a break from all of that rain. And as this cold front continues to slide east, so will high pressure. And then we've got a chance for a few storms along a dry line as we head into Friday, especially back in West Texas, parts of Oklahoma and Kansas. Then it becomes more unsettled in the Pacific Northwest, and we're going to be watching southern Florida as well. Notice this over the next couple of days. There goes that cold front. Look at South Florida, though. Tons of rainfall there, especially and even during the middle part of the country. But look at Florida. Watch this. We've got some tropical moisture moving this way. Upwards of 6, 7, 8 inches of rain could be possible as we head through the weekend. And that's all thanks to potentially the remnants of Agatha that are going to be kind of developing into the Gulf of Mexico. Already warm waters, so something to keep an eye on. 70% probability of development over the next 4 days. So we'll keep an eye on that. Meanwhile, hot and dry in the southwest. Hot and a little humid here in the southeast, but staying a little bit cooler across the northern tier. And we'll keep an eye on the tropics here on Ag Day and give you an update as we head through tomorrow. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. New Miami, Ohio, scattered showers, a high of 73 degrees. Jamestown, North Dakota, sunny and very breezy, a high of 67. And Walla Walla, Washington, mostly sunny with PM storms, a high of 81 degrees.
Agribusiness Today is brought to you exclusively by CHS, your partner in the field providing precision agriculture solutions to farmers across the country.
It could turn out to be the world's largest beef packing facility, and some investors are hoping to make it happen in the Black Hills of South Dakota. Kingsbury and Associates, along with Sirius Realty, want to construct an 8,000 head per day packing plant just south of Rapid City. If realized, the plant would eclipse the total capacity of all other recently proposed startup packing facilities combined. Leaders say it would process beef along with bison as well. CEO Megan Kingsbury says the aim is to restore competition in meat processing in the state. Plans call for a $1.1 billion state-of-the-art plant that would cover 1 million square feet and employ 2,500 people. But some economists are raising red flags about the possible project.
The USDA is estimating next year's beef production to be down about 2 billion pounds. That just goes to show you how much of a contraction could be happening. Adding shackle space that comes on in the next 3 years or so could mean for a much tougher fight for packers in terms of securing enough cattle to keep those plants running at full capacity.
The project is currently in a 6-month research and development phase with groundbreaking expected early next year. Cattle producers and lawmakers continue to work on ways to fix the cattle markets through improved price discovery and transparency. The Iowa Cattlemen's Association hosted a cattle market roundup this week in Cherokee, Iowa. It featured a panel discussion with Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley updating producers about the Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act he and Nebraska Senator Deb Fischer have co-sponsored. It would provide more transparency by creating reporting requirements, including alternative marketing agreements through a cattle contract library. And it would mandate regional negotiated cash minimums that must be bought by packers. ICA Feedlot Council member Brad Koima participated. He says the legislation is needed to level the playing field for independent cattle producers.
My view is that if we don't do something, we're going to continue to see this further deterioration of the negotiated trade. Along with that, the further liquidation of more and more of the small to medium-sized people like my customers and like the way I feed cattle and my family feeds cattle.
Koima says the bill is gaining momentum in the Senate, so they're hopeful for passage. Iowa Republican Congressman Randy Feenstra also offered similar legislation in the House. However, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association and the American Farm Bureau Federation opposed the legislation. Staying healthy is about more than exercise and eating right. What else men particularly need to do coming up. We all know we should eat well and exercise to stay healthy, but a new national survey finds an alarming number of men are skipping a simple critical step in staying on top of their health. Barb Consiglio has more in this story provided by Orlando Health.
Dexter Grant considers himself a fairly health-conscious guy.
I wouldn't say I'm a gym rat, but I do, work out a few days a week, early in the mornings. I find it best to kind of get the day started.
But there's one important aspect of a healthy lifestyle that he's neglected, a yearly checkup with his doctor.
The last time I went was when I was going to college when I was 18. So we're talking almost 2 decades since the last annual checkup.
As a primary care physician, it's a story that Dr. Thomas Kelly hears a lot from men. In fact, a national survey by Orlando Health finds that 1/3 of men in America do not believe they need annual health screenings. Why? Dr. Kelly says he's heard every excuse in the book.
Fear of the unknown is a big one. If you're a man and you haven't been to the doctor in a while, you don't really know what to expect.
Oftentimes, men skip their annual appointments because they don't consider anything could be wrong. In fact, the survey found that 2/3 of men believe they are naturally healthier than most people.
Just statistically, that would be impossible for the majority of men to be healthier than the majority of men.
Primary care is crucial at every age to prevent developing health issues from becoming more serious. For younger men, perhaps it's keeping their blood pressure and mental health in check. And for older men, it's important to identify early heart disease and stay up to date on cancer screenings.
I would much rather go to the doctor once a year for a wellness checkup and make certain that I'm not developing diabetes or high blood pressure or a heart problem than to find myself in an intensive care unit needing a heart bypass surgery because I didn't look into those things.
Dr. Kelly says more men need to make their health a priority, but the survey found nearly 2 in 5 put their pets' health above their own.
I think often men tend to put their health last after their family and apparently even their dog or their cat.
And rather than relying on medical professionals, their survey found a third often get medical advice from social media. Dexter says he'll bring his health questions to his doctor from now on. His annual appointment was not nearly as scary as he thought, and well worth the peace of mind that he's as healthy as he feels.
Once we went through the questions that he did, I did the blood work, you look back and you're like, oh, I should have done that a long time ago.
At Orlando Health, this is Barb Consiglio reporting.
And our thanks to Orlando Health for providing that story. That's all the time we have for this morning. Thanks for joining us for Ag Day from all of us here. Have yourself a great day.